It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
This week, I have had conversations with people believing that it is far better to wait for the market to adjust even further with the softer property prices that we are seeing. Of course, that is human nature to try and pay less, especially given the long sustained period of price growth that we have had right around the country for real estate over a number of years now. When you are comfortable, that is the time to buy. Don't let anybody talk you into buying a property if it is not the right timing. There are unfortunately some who have that aggressive selling instinct to say to you every day that you are not in the property market, it is going to cost you more. Don't listen to that. Just take your time. Now, let's focus this morning on Canberra, because Canberra buyers, they seem to be making decisions earlier. Now, by that, I mean instead of waiting for auction day, many are putting forward offers before the auction even begins. Now, sellers, they're liking that because of the certainty, and the buyers, there's something in it for them because they're avoiding the pressure of bidding. So are pre-auction offers becoming more commonplace at the moment in your market?
I think they definitely are. If you look at the clearance rates, the ones that are selling are generally selling pre-auction. It's a combination of, as you said, the first-time buyers don't necessarily want to wait around for 4 weeks to understand if they're going to buy the property. When they're looking at other properties as well, they're wanting to give their offer, put their best foot forward and see if that's something which the owners are agreeable to. If they are, great. Otherwise, they might move on to the next one. So as a seller, you've got to make that decision as well. Is it the bird in the hand, or do you try your luck at auction? But I think ultimately more and more buyers and sellers are meeting with agreement prior to auction.
Property is all about confidence. Probably fair to say it is mixed, but demand hasn't vanished, especially around those quality properties. We're always talking, a good quality property probably is always likely to sell. Are we seeing then in Canberra right now a market that's becoming far more, I suggest, selective on property buying rather than significantly weaker, a softer market?
Look, there's definitely, like everywhere in Australia at the moment, there's been an impact with recent changes, and, there's a little bit of less confidence with both buyers and sellers. Buyers wanting to make sure they're buying at the right time, and sellers deciding what they're going to do as well. So there's a little bit of uncertainty at the minute. Life is still there to be lived, and people are making moves because they're upside, their family's growing, they're wanting a bigger place, they're moving interstate and all those things. So there's always still factors outside of confidence that makes people need to buy and sell. But ultimately, look, there is a little bit of tightness there with respect to that. There's still definitely transactions happening, and that's basically where we're at. And
how long have you been in the market?
So I've been selling for 21 years, which is a long time. It doesn't seem like a long ago that I was a PA for someone for the first 2 years, and then I was lucky enough to then go out by myself and then become a co-director at another company, and then we've run Timothy Road for about 4 years now.
If you have bought a strata property around Australia, or you're thinking of buying one, we're going to be talking about this morning, because after several years of rising premiums, the strata insurance market is becoming more and more competitive. But are you, the owner, seeing any benefit from what is happening?
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot more insurers enter the market right now, and it is meaning that there is more competition. There are insurers that maybe you've gone to in the past, but obviously this year with more insurers entering the market, that means there's more options available. What we're certainly seeing is some of our clients, when we go out to all of the insurers, we're certainly seeing price reductions, not only from their existing insurer because they want to retain you as your client, but also because there's more options. That means more competition.
Yes, because governments across Australia, they're taking a closer look at insurance commissions paid to strata managers. New South Wales is considering major reforms. You've got Victoria that is reviewing the issue, and the ACT has already taken action. Why are these changes being proposed in the first place? People might be asking themselves. And could greater transparency reduce conflicts of interest, improve competition, and also ultimately lower insurance costs for you, the owner? What do you think, Tyrone?
Yeah, so basically buying decisions in strata at the moment, they're often made by strata managers, and the question when they're receiving such high commissions and payments from certain parties is, are they making buying decisions based on what is in the best interest of the owner's corporation, or are they making buying decisions based on what suits their own personal interests with commissions and remuneration? The governments around Australia, particularly New South Wales, are looking into this because strata managers have a fiduciary duty, which means they have to act in the best interest of the owner's corporation, and they're wanting to ensure that decisions are being made without that conflict. So New South Wales is moving towards a position at the moment where their Productivity Commission have released a report with recommendations on the impact of removing commissions, not only to strata managers but also upstream possibly to insurance brokers. That report suggests that it could benefit owners in New South Wales by over $300 million in saved costs. What we do know is that this isn't just a New South Wales issue. Other states are looking at what New South Wales are doing. I know that both Victoria and ACT have both indicated that they are watching the New South Wales Productivity Commission and reforms that are happening in New South Wales and may go down the path of implementing similar reforms. It's like a domino effect. Once we start seeing a few states taking this action, it will start flowing on to other states within Australia.
Ready to take your real estate knowledge to the next level? So are we.
There are these affordable housing projects that are being offered around Australia that seem to be somewhat misleading for people. And the ABC, they ran a story on this, including Sarah, who moved into what was promoted as affordable housing with the understanding that her rent would be set at just 30% of her income. But months later, that all unfortunately changed. Her rent was then recalculated using a market-based formula, increasing by almost $100 a week and putting her right back into rental stress. You know, 1 step forward, 5 steps back, not to mention the roller coaster of being happy at finding affordable housing to then find herself right back to where she started from.
It's gone up by almost $100 a week. It's definitely going to put me in rent stress again, and I think I'd probably have to look at other private rentals that are cheaper because this isn't affordable anymore. It felt too good to be true, but there was these people that were saying it is, and you just pay 30% and here it is written down and that's all we're asking from you. And I just said, great, okay, this is amazing, and let's do it. It really frustrates me. People say, oh, it's not black and white, but like this is black and white.
So some Australians who appear to be exactly the type of people affordable housing is designed for are being rejected because of strict eligibility rules. In fact, some developments with affordable apartments have even sat vacant while suitable applicants have missed out. So is the affordable housing system working as intended, or has it become too complicated to deliver on its original purpose? Now, we've talked about first home buyers who have moved out of larger city areas into more regional ones, and Josh, who we spoke to a while ago, is worth highlighting his story again because he decided to move from Melbourne to Geelong, and he did this towards the end of 2024. And yes, Geelong has moved along like every other area around Australia on price point. So let's catch up on this story as we drop in on this conversation that is so topical right now.
Being an architect myself, I, obviously am pretty passionate about design. A lot of my own personal clients, $15 million 2-rack homes. And realistically, I wasn't able to achieve the same home at this sort of first home buyer stage. And so I sort of started to look at areas that I could afford in Melbourne that were going to fit my budget, but still gave me, say, for example, a little bit of land, which is something that I really value, gardening and growing veggies. Any area that seemed affordable to me in the surrounding Melbourne areas just had no lifestyle. I just, I guess, saw a little bit more for myself. So I started casting out my net a little bit wider and started looking down Geelong way. Initially, I drove down. I sort of was like, I don't really think it's for me. And then started looking at realestate.com and started finding properties that really caught my attention, 80s homes, 70s homes, like that real mid-century modern style, which is definitely my favorite. And then just started seeing properties. I was like, this is doable. So I went to a few auctions and obviously missed out. Property prices were rising a lot at that time, just sort of early COVID days. And then I ended up finding a property that just ticked every box. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to make this a bit of a decision. Didn't really know anything about the area. It was during COVID, so I actually only ever visited the home once. It was a 5-bed house, had a huge block of land and needed a lot of work, which was something that I was pretty excited about. Moved down. So bought the house 2 months later, settled, moved in and didn't know the beauty of what the area actually was going to hold.
Little bit of blind faith moving out of Melbourne. As you say, you didn't fully appreciate what the area had. You said that you got a little bit of land with us. So how big is the property in terms of land size?
So the land size is about 800 square, which, it's definitely larger than, say, the new developments being built at the moment. But I think the actual orientation of the block, it's at the end of a cul-de-sac. So it's this very long kind of kite-shaped block with a quite a long house on it. So it really then lends itself to incredible opportunities gardening-wise. I've probably got about 7 outdoor areas that I've kind of zoned off into different areas.
Your friends, other people around your same age, people that haven't managed to get into their first property, it's becoming later and later, well into people's 30s, start of their 40s even, to buy their first property, which for my generation just wasn't a thing. We were getting into property in our 20s. I can't imagine sort of getting in at a later age. So you no doubt have other friends that are struggling.
Oh, for sure. I think even for myself, I was always in apartments, obviously living in Melbourne, and I was craving land, so I could actually start doing these hobbies that I always had watched on YouTube and whatnot. And I've got a lot of other friends who are in the same boat. And unfortunately, if they're not willing to sacrifice on the sort of city lifestyle that they require, then they are having to buy apartments. So, they're late 30s and they're only being able to buy their first 1-bedroom apartment or 2-bedroom apartment, wanting to have a couple of kids in there or now being pregnant, and then they're sort of having to sell pretty quickly to then buy something a little bit bigger, or they end up selling their apartment and then just going to have to rent a home of a decent size for them and their young family.
Why pay a premium for advertising that's too expensive? Our listeners are actively engaged in the real estate market. Get your message directly into the ears that can influence your business.
I do want to ask you this, which is something we've talked about a number of times, which has been reported in various places, and that is millennials wanting to have the same lifestyle as their parents for their first home. They just want to sort of jump ahead of the queue. Is that a thing? Is that something that you've sort of experienced with people that you know?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's even it's not an ego thing, or I think it's actually just the desire to have a home that you live in and it's yours. I know for myself, you almost move every year when you're renting because you're having to move to a different area, or rent gets too expensive. You have to go to another area, or you're sick of housemates, or, so I think there's almost that unsettling feeling that you have. So I guess that's where the craving comes for your own home. But then with that, obviously, we look at our parents and go, oh, you had a beautiful 4-bedroom home with 2 bathrooms and a big backyard. And then you compare to what we would now get, which is a 1-bed apartment for the, 10 times more price.
Now, buyers appear to be taking more time before making a decision when it comes to buying property. What are you seeing at the moment, and how would you describe the current Hervey Bay market?
The last couple of months we've been in a bit of a holding pattern, pause. We're seeing the Hervey Bay market transition from the frenzied conditions that we've experienced over the last few years into what I describe most likely a more healthier and certainly a more balanced market at the moment. Quality homes that are well presented and priced appropriately are still selling well. Buyers are no longer feeling that pressure to make the decision within hours because the competition just hasn't been there. So there's more opportunity to conduct their own due diligence. They're comparing other properties to make their informed decisions. On the flip side of that, like the seller's perspective, it's not necessarily a negative. Well-marketed homes continue to attract strong inquiry, but buyers are becoming more selective. Pricing, presentation and professional marketing have never been more important in the current market, unquestionably.
Yes, and that is set to continue for the foreseeable future at the moment in terms of having more time on your side if you are buying property. Now, interstate migration, we've talked a lot about that in your area because it has fueled Hervey Bay's growth in recent years. But buyers now, as we've mentioned, have more choice than they did during the peak. What a welcome shift that is. How is the trend changing the market, though, at the moment, particularly for first-home buyers and local owner-occupiers?
Throughout the previous boom years, really since COVID, the interstate migration into Hervey Bay has created enormous demand. And with many of those buyers relocating out of the capital cities in Sydney, Melbourne, but along with, we've discussed this in the past, southeast Queensland, they're coming to seek a more affordable coastal lifestyle. But that demand still remains today, and we're seeing more properties becoming available, giving those buyers greater choice with a little bit less competition than we saw, say, 3 months ago. For first home buyers, which we don't see a lot of, that is encouraging because most of the incentives are always driven towards those new builds, and they're facing, again, less competition from investors, I'll say, because that's probably some of the biggest changes that have been made throughout the budget. And during the peak of the market, they would have been in strong competition with investors, whereas now we're certainly going to see a lot less investors.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.